Spoiler alert! Just kidding. This is spoiler free. It also doubled as a car pun. Growing up in the 90s, myself and everyone else in their mid-20s to early 30s was lucky to grow up when animated movies were exceptional in quality but also low in quantity. I say lucky because, not to sound like a miserable old fart here, but kids today have no idea what it felt like to have a real sense of excitement and apprehension in the lead up to seeing a new animated movie because there was barely one released per year. Now there's at least 12 or more released every year. Talk about oversaturation. Back then we didn't have as much build up or sneak peeks. That meant that whenever an animated movie from Disney or Pixar had a theatrical release, there was a real sense of excitement and apprehension leading up to seeing it. When the first Cars movie was released in 2006 though, that was the first time I felt Pixar had let me down. It felt like Pixar was just putting profit above artistry, recycling the formula of the secret life of an inanimate object. Problem is, the Cars franchise doesn't have any humans in it, so it's not Secret Life at all. Not only was this formula dead in the water, but it wasn't new when Pixar did it in the first place, and the only reason why they kept repeating the formula was because it was a tried and tested one that worked. Nothing wrong with that, I guess. For me, Cars was just an animated adaptation of the movie Days of Thunder, and lacked the usual fun and emotional rollercoaster expected from a Pixar movie. And don't get me started on the car wreck of Cars 2. If a movie deserved to be crushed and turned into scrap metal, it was that sequel. I also think that the character designs themselves are really cartoony and don't really mesh in well with the backgrounds that are super realistic in comparison. But as far as sequels go, Pixar did the third installment of this franchise right. It had the tone of the first movie, put Lightning McQueen back in the driver's seat, having him arrive at a crossroads in his life. Because of the themes and tone of this movie, here the photorealistic backgrounds work perfectly. True, that has a lot to do with the advances in technology and CGI since the first sequel, but now it feels gritty, greasy and dangerous when it needs to be, as well as sleek, clean and sophisticated when it wants to be. You can feel the textures and the mist, the mud, the weight of the characters themselves. It's just phenomenal to look at. Though it doesn't quite feel like vintage Pixar, it did manage to take me on a journey of Lightning McQueen's ambition and legacy. It changes gears from the second movie, thank God, and focuses back on McQueen's story, while also introducing a new character and watching McQueen pass on his knowledge, experience and love for racing. It's a mashup of old school dirt and grit meets high-tech sleek technology, in a rather predictable plot with all the little twists and turns painfully obvious. This is a movie that takes itself serious enough that we do get emotionally invested in the characters, but it still has fun with what it is. When McQueen crashes at the start of the movie, that's not a spoiler by the way, that was in the trailer that was first released to advertise this movie, I was shocked. I found myself genuinely worried. For a car. But after the crash, was it time for McQueen to retire from racing, the thing that defines what he is and who he is? Or was it time to change lanes and let the next generation of motors overtake him? Kids can relate to Cruise's story of self-doubt while fighting against bullying and prejudice, while adults could relate to McQueen existing in a world that was just advancing far too quickly for him to keep up. The story is nothing new, and them being cars is kind of pointless, but it gives this franchise a fresh coat of paint, knocking out the kinks that were left over by Cars 2, and igniting a spark that should be taken seriously. A pretty surprising installment for me from a franchise that finally feels like it's in the right gear. Also, car pun! I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative.